Broadcaster says we can begin.
That my name is Claire. I work at the Lawrence Kids Foundation, and if you have been to any of our events or walks, or folks across the state of Florida or at the Florida Capitol for 42 hours, we've had the pleasure of meeting. Probably it's nice to see all of you. I'm here just to be our technology moderator, and I will also be helping make sure that all the questions that you guys pose in the comments here are answered and make their way to Senator Book and to Detective. Daisies, I've got my puppy here in my lap. But I am here just to make sure that anything that you ask will be answered. So please go ahead, and as we're doing this discussion, feel free to pose questions in the comments. We will absolutely get to your questions. And I will then turn it over to Senator Book and to Detective Joo to get going.
Well, thank you very much, Claire. And I am always thankful that you are with me either in person or technologically. And you're always making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So thank you for that. And thank you for being with us today. And Detective Joo, thank you so very much for being with us today and helping us answer some questions that we have been getting a tremendous amount of. We've had parents calling in to the foundation. We've had emails. And so we just, there's no one that we know that knows more about this topic than you. And so to kick us off a little bit, could you tell me a little bit about the Internet Crimes Against Kids Unit at BSO and what you do?
Absolutely. And Senator, just Mike is fine. And I greatly appreciate.
And Lauren is fine.
Okay, duly noted. So deal. Okay. Greatly appreciate the opportunity to come and speak. I know that our unit and your foundation have worked closely together in the past, and we greatly appreciate that relationship. In regards to the Broward County Sheriff's Office, the Internet Crimes Against Children unit, it's comprised of, we have 7 detectives and 2 sergeants. We are part of the bigger overall South Florida Internet Crimes Against Children task force, which is comprised of law enforcement officers from federal, state, and local agencies. And primarily what we do is investigate crimes involving the exploitation of children, specifically those that are facilitated by the use of the internet and related technologies. The majority of the crimes that we investigate as part of the South Florida ICAC, and that's when you hear me refer to ICAC, it's just going to be Internet Crimes Against Children. It's just, one of those abbreviations.
We love a good abbreviation.
There you go. So we have the first one of the day. They're all related to the majority for child pornography, and that includes the production, distribution, receipt, possession of child pornography, and also the coercion and enticement of minors to engage in illegal sexual activity.
What you guys do is incredible. The work, what you guys have to see, and I mean, it is the toughest of the tough. And we're first of all, as a victim and a survivor now, thank you for what you do, because I think a lot of times people think of these types of crimes, child pornography, as there's no victim. Well, those things live online forever. So I just want to always say thank you for doing what you do every single day, because I know it certainly is not an easy job. So thank you for that. How many cases do you guys see? I think child pornography, the sale, creation, trade, but also when you're seeing children being forced or coerced into doing things, minors online.
So for us with the Broward County Sheriff's Office,
but also when you're seeing children being forced or coerced into doing things, minors online.
So for us with the Broward County Sheriff's Office,
but also when you're seeing children being forced or coerced into doing things, minors online.
So for us with the Broward County Sheriff's Office,
Can you hear me?
Better.
Yeah, I think we were getting like,
That's
kind of like a lag.
That's good.
Okay.
I think we're having a little bit of a technology challenge.
No, just put, if you, Claire, I think mute your Facebook because it was a reverb, not that I'm the technology expert here.
Yes.
But not that I think that will work.
Okay. So luckily, so in regards to the caseload, our unit itself initiated over 200 cases last year in 2019. Out of those 200 cases, we made 48 physical arrests for child exploitation related offenses. Each one of the arrests and investigations conducted by, and this is just with the Broward Sheriff's Office, we have affiliates in, like with Davie Police Department, Fort Lauderdale PD, Pembroke Pines, a bunch of other local agencies that, we assist with and we partner with, but all of them have a Broward connection and involve the internet in some way.
Okay. And can you talk through a little bit about how predators are exploiting children online and in what ways are children falling prey?
I guess that it's predators typically exploit children one of two ways, and it's pretty ironic since neither method is new or involve the internet. The first is what we usually see is the exploitation of a child's need for attention and approval. And a lot of times that's filled by a predator. If a child is not getting positive attention or approval from his or her family, they will seek it and find it many times elsewhere. And that's the first. The second, obviously, is the exploitation of a child's fear for their parents by a predator. This usually occurs when a child does not feel like they can go to their parents to disclose that they are being victimized for fear of punishment, shame, embarrassment, and believe it or not, or even loss of the social media and digital devices. That's, they're afraid, oh no, I'm going to lose my social media and digital devices. And that's a prominent fear for a lot of these kids. I know at this time it's extremely difficult to keep children occupied. However, I think families should try and use this time to strengthen and reestablish relationships with their children and provide them with that love and attention that they need, that they may otherwise be seeking from strangers online.
And particularly as we, sort of were coming in a little bit early, but just, setting the stage for the conversations. This time of a global pandemic where children's lives are completely turned upside down, have you seen or in your experience how predators can utilize this time to gain access and build those relationships, whether it's attention or approval seeking now?
So numbers right now, it's hard to crunch down the numbers to say that we have seen an influx of these types of cases. I don't know if I can tell you that we haven't had this huge influx of cases like you would see on biblical proportions. Like, oh my goodness, we're getting hundreds more cases. But I think it's a balancing act due to, yes, we are relying heavily on the internet, especially digital media, to make sure that our children are getting the education and also some entertainment that they need. But I think one of the factors that we're maybe not seeing or taking into account is the fact that now that everyone is under one roof, it's a little more difficult to get away and hide in your bedroom or go to the quote unquote park or the library to get away from your parents' watchful eye. Now everyone's at home, dad and mom aren't at work and you aren't at school. Everyone's kind of under that same roof. So any little nuances or changes in behavior might be a little more observable at this time. And it's a little more difficult for children to get away with that type of behavior. And, I think it goes to show that there might be positives that come with this, along with the negatives.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as a parent, what do parents need to know right now? What do they need to be looking for? You sort of indicated some of those changes in behavior, but what should they be tuned into? And what sort of things do they need to be aware of? What should they be doing? Should they be checking the computer? Should they be confiscating the computers? What apps are being used? Gaming systems? What does a parent need to know?
Okay. In my opinion, I would probably say parents need to know four main things, and then from there we can branch off. But parents need to know pretty much all the settings of any application, digital media, internet capable devices that they allow their children access to, inside and out. They essentially need to be the technical experts, because the MySpace of yesterday phases into the Facebook of today, and even Facebook today is kind of like, oh, for the quote unquote older generation. So you're now seeing Twitter and Snapchat and TikTok. So the technology is always going to be progressing. It's up to the parents to be parents and make sure that if their child wants or is asking for access to these types of applications, that they need to be like that lawyer reading through that fine print of every single setting. What does that setting do? Research it online, because every technology out there is going to have its growing pains. I mean, I know a lot of people have said, oh, Zoom this, and Zoom was having problems. I don't think Zoom realized that their technology was going to explode and be utilized to the extent that it has now. So there's obviously going to be growing pains with technology, but if your parents, as a parent, if you're on top of it from the get-go, I think you're setting yourself up and your children up for success. So I would say that's number one. Number two, parents need to know that there are predators out there that are dedicating every waking hour online, attempting to exploit children. For them, I mean, they are by definition experts at what they're doing. For them, a lot of times it's like a numbers game where, I mean, if your child's profile is public, they're just going to go like a machine gun, just hit 500 public social media accounts.
Oh,
And
wow.
if they get a response from 5 of them, it's worth it for them. Yeah. And then they begin that grooming process that we spoke of. We have a couple of our detectives that are excellent with undercover online chatting. And sometimes they'll just interject their way into a suspect that we've identified. And that suspect is, like I said before, has hit up so many different social media accounts that all of a sudden this other one responds. It's like, oh, okay, I guess I may have, asked them for a picture or said hi to them in the past, because to them it's a numbers game. Until they get that response, so they get that hook, and then start trying to reel it in, almost like a fishing, analogy. Number three, I think parents need to know that they're parents, not friends. They have to be willing to take the time to be diligent and regularly inspect all the digital devices. They need to know all of the children's passcodes. And on top of that, a lot of times parents need to put in those parental settings where, an application can't be downloaded unless they first give the approval. I know a lot of devices have that. Parents need to also know that just being quote unquote friends on social media accounts is not enough to be, to be able to say, oh, I'm monitoring their social media, because many children will have several social media accounts that their parents are not even aware of for different purposes. One, they might have one so that their parents and their quote unquote vanilla or generic friends can see, oh, this is, I'm living a straight life. And then they might have one with their closer friends where they're showing a little more of their, dirty laundry, I guess, for lack of a better word. And then they might have a third account where they have, that quote unquote boyfriend or girlfriend that no one knows about, or is the one that the predator requested them to set up in the first place. It's time consuming. Absolutely. But simply put, if you're not willing to put time aside to conduct those inspections, then simply don't allow them access to the internet. It's like, you have to be able to make that investment. If you're going to say yes, then know that you're going to have to review these accounts. And in reviewing these accounts, a lot of times parents will be able to tell if their A, children are being victimized, B, maybe if their children are being bullied, or C, if their children are actually bullying others. If we have to take a look at it, that they're not always going to be the victim. Sometimes they could be the perpetrator, they can be the suspect. We've seen cases where it's like a 19-year-old on a 17-year-old, close in age. So it's not always that creepy 65-year-old from Ohio that you're going to say, oh, that's the guy, living in a trailer and that's all he does. It could be a person within your social group that you may not know of, a church group. Sometimes those are how the connections are made. And parents need to know that even if it's inconvenient, try and restrict the use of digital media devices to common areas, such as the kitchen, the living room. It makes it a little more difficult for a child to be sneaky if they're sitting in the kitchen while you're making, meatballs and sauce. And parents have to know that, in this day and age, unfortunately, one mistake made by your child is out there forever. And it can and will impact the rest of their lives. So, that parents need to be those parents, not their friends. And they have to, stress the fact that the use of digital media devices and access to the internet is a privilege and it's not a right. And then I think lastly, parents need to know that they're role models. They can't tell their children to minimize their use of phones and social media if their face is constantly buried inside of a phone, and constantly on social media and texting other people. If parents put down their digital devices, maybe start engaging in other activities, and their children see it, they'll be more apt to follow in their footsteps. And, just like in this shelter in place and, families are being forced to stay together. I've seen a lot more families out in neighborhoods that, out even riding bikes or taking walks or, just engaging in an out, or doing, arts and crafts, the things that you wouldn't typically either have the time to do or, the opportunity to do, monopolize on that now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you bring up such a good point, and thinking about, some of the things that you brought up. I mean, you're a parent, not a friend. And by the way, you pay for these devices. And I know that there have been, some folks that say, well, you should trust your child. You can trust, but verify. Again, you're the adult in that family and in that household, and you have a responsibility to ensure that what's going on there. And I think, again, it's not necessarily just about your children, but about everything else around. And I think you just bring up such a great, and how many different dimensions there are to the internet, right? You can have the one profile here that looks some kind of way, and then one over here and one over here, one over here. And the internet uniquely allows for that type of engagement, right? And I think
absolutely
true too, that's how predators became. I mean, the ability to connect, they're connecting too, right? It's not, I mean, while they're sending out 500, it's a numbers game to see how many kids respond back. They also have a little world of their own where they've been able to connect, where before the internet, they didn't have that ability. There was just, the NAMBLA meeting every so often, right?
Yes.
Now it's so prolific. It's so huge. So you bring up some incredible points, but so explain to me now, if you could, the TikTok, because we've gotten a lot of questions before the pandemic about TikTok, and is it really that dangerous? It's video. What is the TikTok?
So once again, I try and do as much research as I can. And I open up a couple of TikTok accounts and everything, just like every other social media platform. A lot of children and adults are kind of against the social media giant, I guess, for lack of a better word. You have to think that companies like Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok, they have social engineers working around the clock in order for more views. So that's what they're trying to do. So they're actually engineering the social media interface to almost create an addiction, for lack of a better word. I think there have been some psychologists that have been out there and have documented the fact that these social media platforms are creating a dopamine type of addiction. So, as a user on these social media platforms, the more likes you get, you're getting those little dopamine hits, those little, feeling of love. And TikTok is just at this point the next step. It's entertaining as anything. It seems to merge people's creative abilities with music, and a lot of times it's a short clip, no more than 30 seconds. So there's kind of like it seems like you have to be creative, get your content out there, whether you're piggybacking off of the, more popular songs or whatnot, and coming up with either a dance or some type of entertaining content to go along with that music. And if it goes viral, which a lot of kids and adults are hoping that it will, it creates that, once again, that dopamine hit. And the more people that you get onto that platform, the more popular it's going to be. And it seems like right now, you're absolutely right. It's one of the more popular ones. And go ahead.
You just brought up so I'm sitting here taking all of my notes, all of the wonderful things that you say. But, when you started, you talked about, and we talked about the grooming process and a child's want and need for attention and approval. Yes. First of all, I think that's spans the life of humans, right? We want approval and attention of our peers and of human beings in general. And to that point of the addiction of these apps, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever it is, to get those likes is so important to children that it does create that addiction piece where they aren't validated as individuals if they don't have a set number of likes for something. And I think that is just such a very, very important point that you bring up. So important.
I'm glad you touched on that, because along with, and I think I briefly mentioned it before, that children are afraid of actually losing their social media. One of the detectives that I work with actually had a case where a child was being exploited because their Snapchat account had been taken over, for lack of a better word, by a suspect. So the suspect had been able to gain access to our victim's Snapchat account and was exploiting or blackmailing the victim to provide some type of content, specific content that the suspect wanted. And the reason why the victim wanted to do it was because her social media, the Snapchat, was that important to her. The likes and the streaks and everything that they had engineered into that application was that important to her that she was willing to engage in these behaviors and engage in providing this suspect with what he wanted, just because she just wanted to make sure that her Snapchat life or account or profile was still as popular as it was before the takeover.
That is real. That want and need and desire to be validated and seen in a way is very real. And I think, you see it, right? But I did see some questions here.
Yes,
and I know
I've got
Claire
a few that we can go ahead and pose. The first one, Lauren, I want to give you an opportunity to share about our family activity packs with the Florida Department of Education. Mariah was wondering about some helpful tips or resources to help parents increase awareness and some education regarding this. Do you want to share about how folks can access some of the Lauren's Kids resources to expand digital safety knowledge for families?
Absolutely. And you can, while you're sitting here listening to Detective Joo, Claire, and myself, you can actually scroll through our history. And last week on Monday, we posted some of those. The Parent Pack is an incredible resource, but we have an entire section on internet safety activities that you can engage on, conversations that you can have with your children, whether it's talking about digital citizenship, how you set up a plan to go online, the things that you can do, should do, have to do. Those are all there, and that is lawrencekids.org. You can find that. It's our family safety pack. You can download those on our website. And if you go back through our history, we wanted to make it as easy as possible for families to access that. It was last Monday, and we can again post it here in the comments, I think.
So Bonnie Joe had a question for Detective Joo. She is asking about cases involving predators hacking the phone of a child and speaking directly to them. Kind of a little bit about what you were talking about with the case that you had before. Can you explain more about how to make a child's phone or any digital device harder for a predator to infiltrate and actually hack into?
So hacking, I think, is kind of like a generic boogeyman concept, for lack of a better word. We have to take a look at the technology that's out there, where even Apple and iPhone aren't providing the US government with access to be able to quote unquote hack into a device. So I guess the concept is it's pretty much it's social engineering. So for lack of a better word, so if your predator or your exploiter is going to get in contact with your victim or child in some other way. So whether it's, you know, from that initial profile hitting up like, hey, how are you? You know, I think you're pretty, I think you're amusing, I think you're funny, start feeding that information. During the grooming process and during the course of that relationship, that's when that trust is built, and that's when that child will start divulging information in regards to the phone. And most of the time, it's not even really the phone, it's in regards to social media applications. So they might give up their Snapchat or their Instagram passcodes or passwords, because some of the detours or some of the ways that our predators are able to contact or communicate with our victims is, and one of the ways that they hide it is they will start logging into a joint account. So whether it's your child's Instagram account, and start leaving messages within the account itself. So if you actually take a look at your child's Instagram, it's not going to show publicly that they're messaging with this person that you don't know. It's only when you start actually accessing that device and actually going into the account profile itself is when all of a sudden you start seeing these messages, because they could start it as a draft and then stop. And then all of a sudden the other person logs into the account, picks it up and says, okay, so they're communicating, they're communicating that way. So in regards to the actual hacking of the device, I think it's just kind of like an overall generalized, you know, concern. I mean, there are instances where, you know, we have seen reports where people have reported that all of a sudden the camera on their you know, laptop has become, you know, initiated on, and that once again comes back to the social engineering aspect of it. You know, that predator or that suspect may have convinced the child to install a certain application onto the device, whether it's an iPad or a laptop computer, and instructed the child to go ahead and enable certain features of that application, such as the web camera. Maybe the parents had shut it down initially, but, you know, through this predator's instruction, went ahead and had the child go ahead and, you know, install these types of applications, and then went ahead and let the camera become active again.
Wow.
Or even there is some remote access software out there where, you know, the suspect can instruct the child to install that remote access software, so that way your predator can actually get onto that laptop and start making changes from another device.
Wow.
Thank you so much. Lauren, we've got one for you. How explicit should you get with talking to your child about digital safety? How do you balance wanting to make sure that your child is aware that it's important to stay safe and adhere to safety rules on internet and digital devices versus, you know, you don't want to scare them? How do you suggest, as an educator, as a parent, as a safety advocate, balancing and walking that line?
I think it's important to have developmentally appropriate conversations. And I think all conversations about boundaries are extremely important to have. They're loving conversations. This is not about, and we do not want to scare children, because then they cannot and won't be able to engage and won't want to, right? They won't feel safe to do so. So we want to give them the tools to be able, just like we do in regular in IRL, in real life, right? We want to be able to give them those tools so that they know how to stay safe, no matter where they are, on the internet, in a chat room, or at the park. We want them to be able to identify if something or someone is making them feel unsafe, that we have a set of rules. These rules keep us safe, that you with your children make these rules so that they are a part of their identity, what they are, who they are, so that they mean something to them. And when something does happen, they know who to go to, how to access that help. And again, I think you have some of these conversations as kids are getting older. Obviously, my kids at 3 years old, we talk about, being a good citizen, rules help keep us safe. And why are those things important? But as kids get older and they want to have the validation, as we've talked about, the approval, they want to impress, kids, it's important to have some of that dialogue with your children. And it's not about scaring them. It's not about letting them know that the boogeyman is going to reach through the computer and grab them. That's not going to happen, but you can be taken advantage of. And that brings up a question that I actually have, if I'm allowed to ask another question, a taskmaster. On revenge porn, Detective Joo, how often are you seeing some of what that is, and what does that look like in this world?
We see it, absolutely. I just wrapped up a case recently where it was, and it's primarily an extortion case. So pretty much I had a young lady that believed that she was in a relationship with this young man. He went ahead and videotaped his encounters with this young lady. And then when she decided that she no longer wanted to have relations with this guy, he kept on threatening to expose her on social media. If you don't keep this relationship with me, I'm going to go ahead and expose you on social media. And unfortunately he did. But fortunately, my victim was strong enough and she was in a good place mentally, physically, to take that stand and say, I don't want anyone else to be a victim of this, especially with this young man who had a history of doing this, because a lot of people that were following him on social media knew that this was the type of behavior that he was involved in. He knew that he would be putting up on a regular basis content that was taken and that was not willingly, it is not being shared willingly. So luckily our victim in this case had that strong attitude and said, I don't want to be in this any longer. It's prevalent down here because all it takes is just that one picture or that one screenshot of, what that child perceives as being a mistake. And they're afraid because they've really revealed too much information to the predator. Like a predator will sometimes throw back at the victim, like, I know your parents' Facebook. I know what their Facebook accounts are. How would your parents like it if I posted this picture to their Facebook? And it might be an innocuous bikini picture or something like that. It's prevalent. I mean, we see it down here a lot.
So, Lauren, do
sorry.
you have some tips, again, from your background as an educator with the curriculum that Lauren's Kids develops for children grades K through 12, about how parents can talk to their children and make sure that there's open lines of communication to make sure that children don't fear coming to their parents in a situation where maybe they've made a mistake, maybe they've sent a picture, and they know that they're in
too deep. Yeah.
In too deep. How do you recommend for parents to have these conversations proactively with their children to make sure that children don't fear going to their parents if something happens?
I think that's a really good question. And I think it starts well before, again, any of these types of things could happen, right? That you want to create an environment and an atmosphere in your family and your dynamic with your children, that they know no matter what, that they can come and talk to you, that it's okay to tell if something is unsafe, not right, if you're in too deep, if you're afraid, that we will always figure it out. It may take a little longer to get there for some than others, But we know, I mean, these are things that we all have talked about. I mean, the shame, embarrassment, all of those pieces that go along with childhood sexual abuse. You just want to continue that conversation no matter what, starting at a very, very, very early age. It's okay to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But a mistake doesn't need to end your life, end your world. And it is my job, because we're not friends. I am your parent, to help you solve that problem, to help you out of trouble. I think that those are really important conversations to have, not just once, but every day, that we talk through things that happen, that we don't just, punish. Those are really important, I think, in conversations to have. And again, not specifically about this topic, but anything. Take any opportunity that is a learning one, where a child makes a mistake and comes to you, or you suggest, let's talk about why this happened. How did this happen? Did you see that? I will always come and try to help you in any situation. I think that those are things to keep in mind, because always, I know as a mom now myself, it's easy, right? Like, we would come up with these great things and talk through these wonderful things. But then in real life, now with my own kids, I don't want them to fall. I don't want them to have a mistake, but it is okay. And they will be okay. It's our job as parents, as guardians, as people who are engaged in a child's life, whether you're a grown-up buddy or, helping to raise children, or you're a primary caregiver, to help mold them. And those are some of those conversations to have, I think, all the time, not just about internet safety or a bad situation, but letting them know. And that's really true too. You only know that if it's happened on smaller things, and you can trust it. That's trust. And you build trust. You don't just get it. And a parent does have to work to gain that relationship and build that trust.
And if I could just interject real quick with what the senator said.
Lauren.
All right, Lauren. I can't, and I want to build on that foundation, because you're absolutely right. The foundation that you set up for your children well before the quote unquote internet talk and everything like that is so important, because it goes throughout their life. And you're absolutely right. It has to be reestablished and re-strengthened almost on a daily basis. Part of the investigations that I conduct relate to human trafficking. And you would be surprised that we have 18, 19, 20-year-olds, even at this point, that are afraid to go to their parents because they are in a human trafficking situation. They've engaged in, sexual activity for money, and the trafficker has the pictures and the ads, and will use that against our victim and say, oh, do you want your friends and your parents to know what you're doing? So, I mean, I think whether it's the internet, whether it's relationships with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, whether it's in a human trafficking situation, or, we see these types of relationships, or this, love building in gangs, how, they feel that need for family, they feel that need for, love and, affection through gang relationships. It transcends just the internet, just building that relationship with your child, building that trust, building their self-esteem, because, a child with a strong sense of self-esteem, if someone says, hey, can you send me a nude pic or something like that, a child with a self-esteem is just going to say, no, just, no, thank you. Not today. That same child, when they're 18 or 19 years old, that's approached by a human trafficker that says, oh, you're beautiful, you should come work for me as a dancer or a model, is going to look at him with like he has two heads and like, no, not today. And it happens. I mean, I can tell you, I've interviewed and I've had interactions with dozens of young, beautiful ladies here in South Florida, that's all it takes, is the trafficker will approach them at a Publix and just say, hey, are you a model? Are you a singer? Are you a dancer? And if they have had those relationships with their parents, even as, older teenagers and young adults, keep those lines of communication open, knowing that if I mess up, if I make a mistake, I can still go back to my parents.
Thank you
matter how
both so
bad.
much. That's something that is so critical, and that, as Lauren said, plays into more than just digital safety. As you shared, Detective Ju, goes into human trafficking,
Mike.
goes into sexual abuse, and just permeates a bunch of different layers of safety for children and for families. Now, I do want to bring up a question from Tiffany that is, I think, a question burning on many parents' minds. Fortnite. Is it okay? Is it safe for kids? What can parents do to make sure that their child who is addicted to Fortnite is as safe as possible if they're on this gaming system? Is it okay? What's going on with the Fortnite?
So once again, Fortnite is like every other, and it's funny because it's once again, it's another digital media platform. Fortnite it's a great game. I'm not gonna lie. Coming from the gaming generation. However, once again, parents need to know the settings. They need to understand that if your child has a child's profile is set up as a public profile, that while they're engaging in gameplay with 100 other individuals, or in a squad with 50 other people, or a squad with 4 other people, just like Lauren said, they're matching up people from all over the world.
Mhm.
You could have someone from Italy, someone from China, someone from England on this, and they're communicating with you, and you can have a headset on, and I could be speaking to you and Lauren as clear as day while we're doing this gameplay. So as relationships are established on this gaming platform, it's like, hey, we're friends, we're playing all the time. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of information about my life. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about what I like to do. I actually had a case recently where my victim was initially recruited off of Fortnite. And, that's one case, but, and they have millions of users, but it comes down to, once again, parents knowing the settings. Because if they nip it in the bud in the beginning, that, you're not going to allow strangers to go ahead and friend request them. Because, so just think of it as Facebook or Instagram. You have a profile out there and other people can friend request them. If you don't understand or realize that option is there, and you're just going to willy-nilly let your kid just download Fortnite, not look at any of the settings of what is public and private, then yes, you're going to expose them to literally millions of people in the world, and it's like inviting them into your living room.
Mhm.
And so you recommend that parents can just do a quick Google search to try and figure out some of these settings, to try and figure out some of the possible safety pitfalls. Is that where people should start, Mike?
Oh, absolutely. There are resources out there to be able to assist parents, but once again, it comes down to actually trying to be that expert in everything. One of the reasons I actually downloaded it myself, because when I had the case, I had to try and figure out, I was exactly like a lot of the parents. I was like, this is a game. It's an online game. How could my victim possibly come in contact with my suspect on a gaming platform? But as you deep dive it a little bit, you'll see that it's not only Fortnite. Fortnite, I think, is probably prevalent because it's one of the more popular games out there, but any of your Xbox games, your PS4 games, your PlayStation 4 games, Nintendo Switch, even Minecraft, they all had the ability for, strangers to make contact with each other. My oldest son, Josh Willis, he plays Fortnite all the time. And a lot of times I am always double checking to make sure who his friends are, and will grill him. It's like, all right, this username, who is this? This username, who is that? This user, and then, go back and check with the parents and say, hey, listen, is Juan Parajon, is this his account name? And just double check and go from there.
Well, and even at home at our house, my husband uses what is it now, since you can't go out to have friends, you have like this little digital world now where he'll go play golfing games and he's talking to people. And I know that if there's craziness going on, I'm screaming at one end of the house and something is happening over here. that is also too how predators think about it. If you will, for just a second, and you're a child and you're playing a game and mom comes in and says, stop playing the game, or she's yelling over here, or that person, that predator, whoever it is paying attention to what's happening. Mom scream, oh, she can be really like, and then you build that relationship, that connection with that child. It grows from there. So while again, you're 100% right on all of these things, but think about how these things escalate and piggyback and grow. That's, we're being faced with a different time in a different world. And again, it is so easy for it to happen.
And one thing the parents also need to know, along with Fortnite is a great example, but there is an application out there called Discord, and Discord is another one of those things where I was like, what's that? But it's, when it was explained to me, and I tried dabbling around with it, same thing. You have account profiles and everything like that, but it allows for, like, I guess for lack of a better word, like an overlay. So if Lauren and I like playing Fortnite and I'm kind of lazy and Lauren's kind of lazy and is like, well, I don't want to, I have different account names for Xbox. So we decide, hey, we want to play Xbox, but I don't want to re-log into Xbox and then find your account profile and everything like that. If we play together on a regular basis and we don't want either the Xbox server to be the median between us communicating, we can just log into Discord and say, hey, Lauren, what do you feel like playing today? All right, let's play Fortnite. So then we can play Fortnite, whether I'm playing it on the PC and then you're playing it via Xbox, two totally different platforms, but we can still play together and talk to each other as if we were on that same platform. So, and then if we decide that we want to play NBA Live or something like that, we can switch to that without having to reconnect our audio. Does that make sense? So, that's another place where you're going to see, once again, the technology is always out there. It's always evolving. There's always going to be something different and better. What we need to come back down to is the basics, getting that trust, getting that love, just everything with the family first and foremost, and trying to seal up those things first.
So,
and there was,
go ahead, Lauren.
No, there was one question that I saw a while ago, and I think it lends itself here about balance. Like, and I know you saw the question, Claire, because I know you had a reaction when it popped up, but where is the balance between like the internet, the kind of where we are in our worlds? Like, what is that balance of child's need for privacy?
Of course, you can have your privacy when you take a shower, go to the bathroom. If you're going to play a video game, you're going to play it in the living room, because there's no reason why you can't play a video game, in the living room. If you're getting changed, you'll get privacy. When you're going to go to sleep, you're going to get privacy. But in this day and age, I think being tough and being that parent and putting your foot down, okay, if you want your privacy, that's fine. Go to your bedroom, but leave your device out here. I'll give you that. I'm not telling you that you have to stay out here in the living room, but if you want to go to your bedroom, you're going to go to your bedroom. That's fine. Leave everything out here, because that way it's going to minimize the chances of them being exploited.
I think that it comes to again, that whole piece of parent, not friend. And I think that, there's a balance, but it's again, a trust but verify as well. So you check the passwords, you get in, you look at what's going on, and you potentially save a child's life.
And I did also want to bring up a question that I'm sure many parents have. Families look all kinds of ways today. Sometimes parents may not be together. Sometimes a child may go to grandma or grandpa's house after school, and having a cell phone for a child at a young age may be a safety necessity. Can you talk a little bit about, Mike, is there an age cutoff for having a cell phone or digital device? Or if a child does have a cell phone at a younger age due to some safety necessity, what are at the very basic level some protective pieces that a parent should have in place?
You're absolutely right. It is a strange time that we live in, but also I find it hard to rationalize like, oh, I have to give my child a cell phone because he or she is going to mom's for the weekend or dad's for the weekend. You know what I mean? I mean, those types of relationships, you know, mixed families or have been around for decades, hundreds of years. And even prior to that, I mean, even if we go back 40 years or 50 years, you know, you make that phone call, mom, dad, I'm okay. This is what we're planning on doing. And then going from there. If your child is so young that you have concerns about them accessing the internet, you know, you can go to Target or Walmart or 7-Eleven and just get one of the standard prepaid $20 phones where the only thing that you can do is make a phone call and save, you know, mom is 1, dad is 2, and then make sure that you only keep enough, you know, money on that phone to be able to make the phone call where if they're going away for the weekend or something like that, it's like, okay, they can take the phone with them. If they decide that they want to talk to mom or dad or whoever the other, you know, half of the parental unit, for lack of a better word, is, you know, and make sure that they have enough minutes for that. And then that's all it's there for. Because if that's what they're going to rationalize, like, oh, I have to give my child a cell phone because I'm worried about their safety. Well, research it. There's a tool for that. There's a phone for that. And, you know, there's going to be a way that you can minimize your child's exposure to the internet, you know.
What is that one, a jitterbug?
Something like yes. With the big numbers. Absolutely.
Yes.
Because, you know, it would just be like saying, well, you know, my kid needs to get to school and he's 10 years old and it's difficult for me to get him to school. You're not going to hand him a brand new Tesla and say, here you go, have fun, you know, get yourself to school and back. There's absolutely no parent in their right mind that would do that. So that's just like giving a 7 or 8 year old an internet ready device and saying, oh, here you go, have fun. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Someone is sharing, Mike, that they're using Covenant Eyes and Kids Locks to have accountability and monitor their child's internet searches. Do you know anything about those specific apps or anything like that you would recommend?
I don't know those specific applications per se. However, I know that there are a lot of great companies out there that are trying to provide some type of products in order to monitor children's safety. But once again, I think it comes back down to actually going into the actual devices themselves and just conducting those search histories. As a parent, you should know that if every time you check the laptop that your child is using and seeing that the browser history is clear every single time, then you know there's an issue. You know, it's why are they constantly deleting their search history? I think an over-reliance on certain applications, because applications are always going to change. Technology is always going to change. Those applications might be great for a set of technologies that are out there right now at this moment, but 6 or 7 months from now, there's going to be another app. There's going to be, you know, another set of circumstances that this software isn't going to be able to account for. And then your over-reliance on this software is going to allow for those gaps where your child is going to exploit them. Because, I mean, not for nothing, they're evil geniuses. If they can find a workaround, they're going to find a workaround. If they decide that they want to have 6 or 7 social media accounts, they're going to find a way to do it if that's what they're motivated to do.
So you you know, think that these applications may be a good crutch, not a total solution for families.
Absolutely.
Pardon me, a tool, not a crutch.
Yes.
Something that is a piece of your safety strategy, but certainly not what you should rely on and feel a false sense of security if you have them installed on your children's devices.
Absolutely.
Great.
I think that's a really good point.
So we've got just a few more minutes. Folks watching, I want to encourage you to go ahead and ask if you've got one more burning question on your mind. We've got time for maybe 1 or 2 more. Senator Book, do you have any thoughts or a closing question that you'd like to ask Mike?
You know, I think that and I think that these are things that we're constantly, and we've talked a little bit about, but a toolkit of a boot camp, if you will, of how to engage. You've gone through it, know the settings, know those pieces, those parts, those apps, stay topical. But one of the things I think that, we could do as a foundation, and we've done a lot of this, but, maybe provide some of those different pieces and parts on our website to kind of go through, whether it's TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. But I do think that if you are going to give your children a device, that you have to engage and involve yourself in that device. And we're obviously a resource for that, but it's so important. And then also, the evil genius of it, and you talking about, and this is more about the predators. If you spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, thinking about how you are going to gain access to children, you're going to do that. And I want to make sure that we have, and that Detective Joo and other law enforcement entities throughout the state have the ability to go after predators gung-ho in any way that they can. So I think that, doubling down on our commitment and my commitment to make sure that all of those resources are available. But I would say, and I ask this question, Detective Joo, when you talk about some of the child pornography pieces of things, the trading, the creation, is it so vast? Is it just so big, so much that it's almost impossible to tackle it? Or are there ways, or does it need more resources? Do we need more resources? Technology changing. I know that there was a big thing about some of the different platforms encrypting stuff so that law enforcement agencies can't go after, individuals that are uploading child pornography. Where and how do you find that balance? And where do we go from here? That's a bigger picture question, I know.
So I will always tell you that for our mission, trust me, I would love more detectives. It's something, obviously, budgetary concerns and everything like that. But, because I am very passionate about our mission, the safety of our children is something that I take very, I take it to heart. Yeah, I mean, it's just like you noted, there are predators out there. There are, just like there are people that develop applications to assist with the protection of children, there are people out there making applications to thwart our ability to go ahead and try and go after them. It's daunting, without a doubt, but I don't think any one of the detectives that I work with are going to throw their hands up in the air and just say, well, this is just too big of a problem. We're going to fight the good fight with what we have. Whatever tools you provide, whatever resources that are at our disposal, we will go ahead and try and find as many suspects, as many predators, as many exploiters that we can, and try and make examples out of them. And hopefully, while doing that, maybe take that one person that is thinking about it and say, well, you know what, I'd probably not want to spend the rest of my life in prison. Maybe that would be enough for them for them not to engage in that activity. But yeah, I mean, we constantly have obstacles, but luckily we have in place a great command staff that understands a lot of the challenges that we have, and the detectives that I work with on a daily basis have the ability to think out of the box. So it's not like A plus B equals C all the time. We have the ability and resources to be able to try and think our way out of the box to try and get after those bad guys.
I think that is a wonderful place to stop. We're coming up on our 1 hour with Detective Mike Joo from the Broward Sheriff's Office Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and Senator Lauren Book, Lauren's Kids founder and CEO. So I want to, on behalf of the Lauren's Kids Foundation and all of our folks watching at home, thank both of you for lending us your time and your expertise. We truly appreciate it. Lauren, do you have anything that you'd like to close with?
Well, I just, again, want to thank the detective, his entire crew, who have always been such incredible resources for us throughout the years. We are going to continue this great work this month. We have a couple more events, I think, coming up, Claire, that...
Yes, we're actually going to be broadcasting every Monday at 12:30 through the month of May. Since school closures, school will not be back in session as it traditionally is for the rest of the school year. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to provide high quality live discussions. We've got some survival tips for parents next Monday here at 12:30 p.m. And you can find a full list of all of the different events and live streams that we will offer at lawrencekids.org.
We love you guys, and we hope that this was helpful and insightful. I know that every time I talk to Detective Joo, I am thinking of 10 or 15 other things that we can be doing. And I just, I want to thank him for this opportunity. I want to thank all of you for tuning in, for being with us this wonderful, is it Monday or it's Monday? It's Monday. There's a wonderful Monday. And we're going to get through this together, as we've always said. I know that these are difficult, challenging times. Send us a note. Claire and I are constantly, Fudge, are checking things out. Please send us a note. If there's something you want to see, something you liked, something you want more of, something you want less of, things that maybe we've not done before, but you know, you want them. We're going to work to make sure that everybody gets what they need during this time, and thank all of you for being a part of our family.
Absolutely. And just one more time, thank you so much, Detective Mike Joo from BSO Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, for the work that you have done with us today and the work that you and your colleagues do every single day to make sure that children in Broward County and beyond are safe and protected from the predators that unfortunately we know are out there.
We greatly appreciate the opportunity to work with the senator and Lawrence kids. So, you know, hopefully this will keep going, and we'll have some more discussions.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to
And
you later. Tune in next Monday.
I want to say thank you to Claire, the taskmaster,
Yes.
technology
Thank you, Claire.
My
extraordinaire, who
true
always
pleasure.
finds a way to figure out any technology piece where I come up with some crazy idea to do something. You always make it happen. So thanks.
My true pleasure. We'll see you guys next Monday at 12:30.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.